Okay, forgive me for the vague title and thumbnail, but I really have no other way to describe what's going on with this prospect. We're talking about a guy that the Montreal Canadiens have in their system, but for better or for worse, there was an article published earlier this week on responsiblegambling.org that really makes things interesting. Things are getting so weird for a guy who at points throughout last season we said was an immediate Montreal Canadiens steal. Today, we are talking about Bogdan Konyushkov, a Montreal Canadiens 2023 drafted 4th-round pick who is 21 years old and a 6 feet, 172-pound right-handed defenseman. You could obviously do the math here. I mean, it was drafted in 2023, he's born December 2002, meaning that his draft-eligible season was with the 03s, meaning that he was actually eligible for the 2021 draft. This guy was taken by the Canadiens as a draft +2 over Asia. And for good reason, too. Playing for Torpedo in the KHL, Bogdan Konyushkov, at 20 years old, scored 25 points in 64 games played. It's a pretty good metric here. The guy was producing, small guy, offensively capable guy, and the Canadiens decided, hey, let's take a 4th-round pick and use it to select this dude. And the year after, things were looking really great with that pick. Because in last season's worth of play, Bogdan Konyushkov was, again, with Torpedo. This time he was the captain of the team. He had scored 28 points in 65 games played, and a lot of us here in the West were talking about Konyushkov as this potential guy to maybe fight for a spot, a right-handed offensive player that could produce points and be a useful captain in the KHL, and a lot of us were kind of excited. Hey, a 4th-round overage guy. When does a player like that ever get a spotlight? And maybe because it's Montreal, there was a bigger spotlight on him than usual. A lot of Canadiens fans were going out there and cheering him on. But for the most part, this recently completed season was seen as a positive one. So, heading into 2024-2025, we were expecting some pretty decent things out of Konyushkov. Maybe he would take the next step. Maybe he would become maybe a 35 or 40-point guy. He would expand on his role as the captain of the team. But the thing is, this season, Bogdan Konyushkov was stripped of the captaincy. And this article on rg.org, written and published by Sergei Demidov, goes out there and explains why, and there are also a few other comments made by Konyushkov himself that make things really, really strange. Take a look at this article, link is in the description. Konyushkov talks about the decreased playing time and the loss of a C after Slava Voinov's arrival. Oh boy, I wonder where this is going. Take a look at this. Montreal Canadiens fans were seriously concerned when they saw that Bogdan Konyushkov was no longer the captain of Torpedo in the KHL and was moved to the 3rd pair of defense. What happened? Did Konyushkov, selected by the Canadiens in the 2023 draft, somehow anger coach Igor Larionov? The answer turns out to be simple. Experienced defenseman Slava Voinov, who won 2 Stanley Cups in 2012 and 14 with the Kings, joined Torpedo in the offseason. The C went to Voinov along with the status of leader in playing time at even strength and the power play. Overall, nothing has changed, Konyushkov told responsiblegambling.org on Saturday after the game against Spartak. When such an experienced player comes, all I can do is learn from his experience and listen to his tips. It's nice to be on a team with Voinov. He gives me tips on both defense and life. He's seen a lot, so nothing has changed. I'm still a young player, although I now have more experience than my peers. I try to use as much playing time as I'm given as efficiently as possible. Now here's the thing with Bogdan Konyushkov before we even get into the Slava Voinov thing. This season, Konyushkov has scored himself 1 point in 6 games with Torpedo, and the ice time that he's been getting has varied from around 18 to 21 minutes, roughly settling in that 20-ish minute mark. Last season, however, Bogdan Konyushkov was consistently getting 22, 23, 24-minute games. He even had a 37-minute game in one of the final Torpedo matches of the year. Of course, though, that went to overtime, so it's not really, comparable. But still, Konyushkov was given significantly higher minutes in last season's worth of play. Towards the end of the KHL regular season, the guy was easily getting to 23 minutes a game at least. Then he was getting up to 28, 27, 25, 26 minutes over and over and over again. Konyushkov was a monster. And now, Another monster in Slava Voinov, a monster in a different way, joins the team, takes the C, and then gets all the minutes. Slava Voinov, imagine that guy being named as a prime leader on your hockey team. No disrespect to all my Russian viewers and friends out there. I have amazing, amazing Russian people in my life. The country is beautiful, many cities are beautiful, but come on. This is totally like the KHL being the KHL, giving Slava Voinov, of all people, the best proper treatment that he could ever get. I think that sometimes reducing playing time makes you more efficient because your workload is reduced, which means there's less risk of injury. I hope that's how it will be. It all depends on me, Konyushkov said. This article then goes out there and describes some of the ice time changes that have been gone out there and discussed. It's very difficult to actually internalize here. Konyushkov then says this, that Slava Voinov's experience is felt. But we haven't played many games yet, so I can't draw any specific conclusions about his influence on me yet. But he gives me much advice during training, how to fight, position to stick, and other details. Now, before we finish off this video, I wanted to go over one more comment and another conversation brought up by Bogdan Konyushkov that kind of makes the article. This is a very weird thing to bring up, but it is brought up here towards the end of the piece. It's kind of why I wanted to make an entire video on this article in the first place. Take a look at this. Bogdan Konyushkov said that he has no connection with the Montreal Canadiens, unlike SKA forward Ivan Demidov, who was selected 5th overall in 2024. The Habs communicate so much with Demidov because he was chosen high in the draft. He is a top prospect. I don't have that, said Konyushkov. I don't think ahead because I have at least 2 more years of contract with Torpedo. I'm very happy to be here. Of course, if the opportunity arises, if the circumstances work out, if I'm ready, I would like to play in the NHL. It is every boy's dream. Konyushkov believes that tomorrow he is not ready to play in the NHL. It is difficult to evaluate myself, but I hope I will be ready soon. The Torpedo defenseman is not closely acquainted with Demidov and has never played against him. That could happen on September 21st when Torpedo hosts SKA St. Petersburg. One more comment over here. Demidov is an interesting guy, said Konyushkov. I like his skills. There is a fashion for skilled and fast players now. Montreal fans are waiting for him for a reason. I think he will amaze them. This is so interesting to go out there and see. When was the last time you've seen a prospect straight up said, yeah, I don't talk with my NHL team. I get it, I'm a few years removed from being able to play with them, but I don't talk to them at all. They, however, talk a lot to the guy that was taken 5th overall. They talk to him because he's a top prospect. I do not have that. It's so interesting how Konyushkov straight up talks about how he apparently has no contact with the Montreal Canadiens. Like, I don't know about you, top prospect, middle tier prospect, 4th round double overager prospect, I don't care what it is. Montreal Canadiens got to go out there and talk to their guys. They got to communicate. That's what every important relationship is built upon. Communication. And I don't know, it kind of rubs me the wrong way to know that Konyushkov was a guy who was entrusted with so much responsibility last year, who was garnering so much hype from Montreal Canadiens fans last year. Oh, look at this guy, a minutes eating, literally like he eats minutes for breakfast. He's getting 28 minutes a night. Right-handed defenseman, early 20s-year-old captain in the Continental Hockey League. How crazy is that? Habs fans were going nuts for this guy. And then to learn that he's not been communicating with the Canadiens this entire time, they're not even checking in on him. Maybe they're watching his games, maybe they're doing their scouting, but they're not even talking to the guy. I feel like it is part of Montreal's due diligence as an NHL team to keep constant communication with their guys. Maybe even not like constant. You're not talking to him every day. You're talking to him maybe every 2 or 3 weeks. Hey, we saw your game against SKA St. Petersburg. You played great. How did you play 37 minutes and you didn't get tired? Hey, congrats on being named the captain. We'll be cheering you on. Hey, Owen Beck, congrats on that hat trick. And then they're going to hit him up again 2 weeks later. Hey, nice play right there. Like, I don't know if I'm being a little bit self-inserting here by just talking about how important it is to check in with the guys that you own. That's a really bad word to use. Own? Yeah, no, they belong to the Canadiens, right? They're Canadiens prospects. I feel like it's a part of the Canadiens' responsibility to go out there and check in with them, but to hear that apparently they don't do that with Konyushkov is very strange. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Bogdan Konyushkov in this interview, talking about how his reduced role is because of Slava Voinov, talking about Demidov and everything else in between. I hope you enjoyed this video, and Bye.